All righty. Good morning. Well, I should say good afternoon, depending on where you are. We've got a great show. I've been looking forward to this. We were originally scheduled for last week. We had some issues come up, and I had some stuff to take care of, so that knocked us out 2 times. So we managed to get this together, and I'm very excited because as I said, we've been planning and wanting to do this show for quite some time. We've had both of these men have been on once before to tell their stories individually. We've got Captain John Bartlett, and we've got crowd favorite Mr. Brew Taylor. And what we're going to do, since we've had a great influx of new viewers for some unknown reason, I thank all of y'all that are new watchers, new viewers. Please like and subscribe to get these men's stories out and shared. We're going to let them kind of give a brief bio on themselves for all of you guys. And then we're going to kind of hop into some questions that that Mr. John had found from a history project that was going around. So I think it's going to be a good show, as well as taking some questions from you guys. So Mr. Brew, we're going to let you kick off the rundown of reintroducing you guys to the crowd.
Okay. Well, I enlisted in the Army in 1967, right after high school. And I actually enlisted to go into helicopter training. And that didn't work out because they said I had a lack of military development. And they were absolutely correct in that respect. So that's how I got into Special Forces. I served with the 6th Special Forces and then was later sent to 5th Special Forces, where I volunteered for SOG, ended up at CCN, where I ran my very first mission with Captain Bartlett. I was a commo man.
Yep.
And E5, well, as E4 when I first ran that mission with Captain Bartlett, got promoted to E5 a little bit later, and served in the Hatchet Force for about a month or so. Then I was sent up to the Quang Tri launch site, from there up to Hickory Radio Relay, and ended up back in Recon in the following year. So I had a little bit of everything at CCN, you might say, at one point or another. So, yeah, I got to go in several different kinds of combat operations. They're all a little bit different. The thing that was consistent was the enemy. They were always there. And I don't think I ran one dry hole that I can remember of, and that was a recon school. And other than that, it was stand-up, shoot-back targets, and kind of an interesting school.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of puts it in a nutshell. I'll turn it over to the captain.
Thank you. And thanks to all the viewers that show interest. We appreciate it, and I take it as a welcome home that you would show the interest and share the stories with us. Brew and I want to share stories to help the people and help especially the younger vets that are getting out, dealing maybe with Afghanistan or one of those issues type thing. Came in the Army through what they call a volunteer draft. We had a different draft in those days. Draft in those days was mandatory service for 2 years, and then you had obligations with Reserve or National Guard. However, as an incentive, because of high casualty rates in the infantry battalions in Vietnam, they came up with this program of volunteering for the draft, which meant that, as myself and others, we came in, we went to infantry basic, infantry advanced infantry course they then called Tigerland. There was 2 places, Fort McClellan, Alabama, Fort Polk, Louisiana. And that was all geared toward Vietnam. In fact, basic was M14s and advanced infantry training was M16s. They were getting us ready. Most of our cadre were convalescing in between tours, coming back from Vietnam. So we had hands-on sergeants teaching us what to do. We were blessed. when that was over, I went to what they used to tease us, the Shake and Bake Academy, because of an ingredient that they were selling on TV at the time for fried chicken. You'd shake it in a bag and fry it up. But anyway, it was called Instant NCO Academy. And you had most everybody graduated as E5 or E4 from PFC. Honor graduate was E6. And you had to volunteer for Vietnam. And I forgot to mention on the volunteer for the draft, you had to volunteer for Vietnam. That was a 12-week course. It was more intensive small unit training for Vietnam. And again, the cadre they were driven to help us get ourselves together for training. About 10th week of a 12-week course, they woke us up in the middle of the night and said, we're filling an OCS officer candidate school here at Fort Benning, and we need volunteers. If you volunteer to Vietnam, get your stuff, get on the bus. At that time, I had a baby coming and a wife, and wanted to be there for when the baby was born. So I said, okay, and went to 22 weeks of infantry training. So, and it was under the same mode or flavor. The office TAC officers already had their first tour in Vietnam, so had good training. Went to jump school after that, and there was a recruiter there for special forces, and so even though I was an officer, they could help us out. I was a second lieutenant. 12 weeks of special forces training, 30 days off. Went to the 5th Special Forces. We were all about 8 or 10 of us young officers were standing there, and they asked us, where do you want to go? And I had no idea, to tell you the truth. All experience I had was the John Wayne Green Beret movie. So I said, well, I'm from Colorado. I want to go to the mountains. That's all I could think to say at 19 years of age. They said, fine, you go to CCN. And off I went and went into the Hatchet Force because I was a lieutenant and a platoon leader, and got to run missions. We ran missions from small groups. We called it small, like 15 to 20 guys. Some people called it a spike team. It was raid and ambush, prowling around looking for a fight is what we were there. Also reconnaissance to report what we seen and heard and found. And some of the missions went on up to platoon size. For us anyway, that was mid-20s type thing. And again, we were there to search and destroy that type of mission. No recon experience at all. On my 10th month, got put in the staff as a training officer type thing, and then rotated home. Did it cover it?
Yes, sir. That's good to go. To kind of lead it, and guys, if y'all have got some questions, this is a bit of a Q&A show, as well as covering some stuff that we already had pre-planned question wise to cover. But one of the, and I think you both covered it not only in your individual interviews, but just then. But what was the not only the year you joined the military, but what was the time when? What was the year when you got in country officially linked up with SOG?
For me, it was 1969 mid-year. And then went through 1970.
Okay.
Yeah, mine was just as a matter of interest on this same question. My orders said I arrived at CCN on 28 August. And Captain can tell you, we were in the field on the 10th of September.
Yeah, we were.
So here you have to understand this, okay? He's a brand new lieutenant. Everybody in that company going across the fence, except for one man, had never been on the ground in Laos before.
Any combat anywhere. Yeah.
There was actually only 2 people that had combat experience, and that was Sergeant Eli,
yes,
and Smith. And
Patrick.
Smith gave up his R&R to go with us because he said, I can't let you guys go out there like this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they were sending us out. Everybody's totally green, came in at the same time. So less than 2 weeks in country, bang, we're in the field. And just to back it up a little bit, all the special forces training we had at the time was aimed at Russia.
Mm-hmm.
It was all guerrilla warfare training. We were doing long range communications by CW. You know, this is all designed that we go to Europe and fight the Russians. And then next thing we know, we're in the jungles fighting the NVA.
Yeah.
And there was not, the only reason that we were halfway prepared is because, as the captain said, the cadre, most of them had been to Vietnam. And because of the stories and the way they referred, and they passed on some things to us, but it wasn't in the training program.
Exactly right. Yeah. And it was Pat. I got to say something good about this man. He didn't have to go out with us. It was a matter of honor and pride, and maybe a little bit of disgust. They would send us out, but he stepped up and led us and taught us some of the things that we needed to do at his own risk. And he was laying right beside me when he took a piece of shrapnel in the leg and had to pay the price. And I don't know what happened to him after we medevaced him. Maybe Brew does.
I don't know.
Yeah, but if you're out there, thank you. And thank you to your family, and be proud of that man. He stepped up when it really counted.
Yeah.
And Eli did good too. I don't mean to downplay that.
Yeah.
Everybody pulled together and we made it happen. And we even laughed it off a couple of times. Well, we wanted to be in special forces and wear a green beret, and now we are. And oh boy, go ahead, Brew. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. Yeah, Pat Smith, he was my roommate. Yeah. And he, like you said, he was a stand-up guy. Gave up his R&R and said, you can't let you go like this. But I might say that the headquarters could certainly do that.
Yeah. Yeah, type thing. And we had a successful mission. We did. We did, yeah.
We only had one person wounded, and that was Pat. Got wounded by his own airstrike.
By his own airstrike, yeah. What they used to say, what'll goof up will goof up, Murphy's Law or whatever it was. And, it just did. We were very blessed.
Were you guys getting but before we get to some of the questions in the piece we've got prepared, you kind of mentioned or Brew just mentioned that y'all were being even trained in special forces. Well, you were seeing Vietnam vets and that helped, but everything was really geared toward Russia and the Eastern Bloc and all of that. By this time, when you're in special forces getting in country, is there any of the COC courses going on that y'all went through, or are y'all at this time sped through and immediately get into FOBs to start working, like the combat orientation course on Entree Island or anything, or
Go ahead, Brew. Well, like everything that has to do with SOG, it depends on what date. Now, I've talked to guys that went through COC, but when I got there, they said, and for you guys in SOG, you won't be going to COC because you got your own training program. Yeah, we did. It was run by the NVA. So it really depended. And then it's just like you talk to people who go to recon school. Well, normally they went to recon school before they went to recon company. But I was in recon school with Graham, and he'd already run 20 missions by the time he got to recon school.
Exactly.
So it really depends on where and when. But in answer to your question, no, I didn't get any of that.
I did. When I got there, they had what they called, let me start over. 5th group was running Recondo school at the time. But we didn't go to that In those days, we didn't say SOG or MACV SOG. We said C&C.
Mm-hmm.
We had our own training at Camp Longton, and they had 1-0 school, which was for recon team leaders or anybody going into recon company. But 1-0 was the call sign for the recon leader, and they went by that as almost by like it was their name, 1-0. And then we had HF school, Hatchet Force, which was the same link. I think it was 2 weeks, both schools. We worked in platoon and company size operations. It was right out of the Ranger handbook. Our predecessors had a lot of Ranger background, both in Korea and World War II, and they knew the handbook and they lived it, and it fit in well with us. And I know there's rivalry between Special Forces and what am I trying to say here, Rangers? But it was small unit platoon and smaller size operations. A lot of that was because of the lift capability of the Huey and the CH-34, how many we could lift at the altitudes and all the flight things that come out on moving troops around with that. My training was good. We were a company size unit. We did it in the Michelin rubber plantation in South Vietnam, and we did make contact, but we had no casualties. It was pretty lightweight, but at least you heard some shots fired and kind of got a little bit of help type thing. It was a good transition. I like to tease and say we had good tactical training, but the NVA taught me how to rapidly change magazines. We never did that in any of the training, not once. And the Army was, I'm not complaining, I'm reporting here for the sake of maybe training being better for the younger people, but there's so much they have to teach you in a shorter period of time, but we need to know how to fight. And we need to learn it from guys who were fighting before us type thing. And they taught us those, I don't know, sergeant things, I guess and we were blessed to have that happen. I know the Army gets caught up so much in safety in those days. Safety this and safety that. And yeah, we need that too, but we still need to know the basics of how to fight with automatic weapons type of thing. And it's not a regret. We learned it and got through it, just making a statement.
Well, the other thing is, I have to say this, we trained ourselves.
Yep, we did.
Because there was we had those 2 formal schools, the one he's talking about, recon school, HF school. You go down there for about 2.5 weeks. Yeah. That's the only formal training that was on the books. So everything else we taught ourselves. You talk to other guys, you get people who had experience. Yeah.
There's Skinner right there where that arrow is.
No.
Yeah, that's Skinner. Look at that 173rd patch.
Yeah.
You bet. And some of the guys, yeah. Tell them, Brew, how strong your grip gets hanging onto that ladder.
Well, I can tell you this. I have the world's record for reciting the 23rd Psalm while hanging underneath a helicopter at 6,000 feet.
Yeah.
Flying across the Ashell Valley waiting for the golden BB.
Yeah. That's exactly right. You brought back a good memory. Thank you. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because you guys are. I mean, look at that. I mean, you're just sitting there in a clump. I mean,
we had one. We had 1 mountain yard to climb all the way up in the helicopter. Now we were hooked in.
Oh yeah, snap in on the.
Yeah, you caught it on the vertical cables there, and you hooked yourself in. That was great for wounded or exhausted team members because they wouldn't fall off of the darn thing. And then it took some training, and this is a training picture here. Yeah,
that's a Marine CH-46.
Right. Yep. Helped us out a lot. They did. They had the lift that we needed uh, to be able to help us, type thing.
That's a great shot. I can't tell if the guys are going up or down. It might look like they're going up.
They're going up into the bird because the pilot requested to do their part of the training there. And I took that picture of the guys going up type of a deal because there's some issues on it. You know, it's swinging with the wind and the prop blast and stuff.
Yeah.
Staying separate. You don't have to tell anybody to be careful.
I bet not.
They're being careful, type thing. But the Marines, they were there for us. Bottom line, and I'd like to give a shout out to American and Vietnamese pilots and crew, both fixed wing and rotary wing, in the American Air Force.
Absolutely.
Me and Brew, I think I can speak for him here, if not speak up, but that's Monkey Mountain right there. No, that's the mountain by CCN. We're right. Yeah. A lot of us are only here today because they came and pulled us out.
Amen.
Yeah. It truly is. On one of my extractions, the co-pilot was killed, and I think the door gunners were either killed or wounded. The bird took over 200 hits, I was told. And the thing I want to say the most, after you land, the team goes about its business, taking care of wounded and dead, and we go our way, and the crew goes the other way with the bird. The pilot of that bird got out of it, was sitting there smoking, walked over and got in another bird and went for another load.
God.
That is incredible courage and dedication, and hats off. I don't know his name. We never get to say thank you, but what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way is thank you to all those people.
Yeah.
Did I cover it, Brew? Did I cover it?
Hey, that's exactly right. I mean, there's Fred Wunderlich said it. He said, "Never have so few stood on the shoulders of so many."
Yeah. Well spoken. Yes.
There was
He's a brother officer of mine. Yeah.
I have to say that I remember going in, coming back from a target. We're getting anti-aircraft fire. We're about 38 clicks north of the D in this one, and this 37 is following us along. We were doing 87 miles an hour, and you're thinking, holy schmoly, And at that moment, I was pretty glad I didn't go to helicopter school.
Yeah. Yeah, they talk about guts, good old-fashioned American guts, and commitment to the job. There he is. Yeah, one of our guys. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Chua. Chua is one of the guys that hung out with me that first couple of weeks and taught me brew.
Mm-hmm.
And after I found out that we were going to the field in less than 2 weeks, and that we had two interpreters. We had one from English to Vietnamese and one from Vietnamese to brew.
Yes.
And that interpreter was going to be with the captain, and I had nobody to interpret for my squad. Yep. So I said, I'm going to learn at least a few things. Yeah. So I got my notebook and went down and started learning brew.
A gift, the language gift. Yeah, little things like bring me the machine gun.
Yeah, you get online, stop.
Yeah, we a lot of hand and arm signals, a lot of foul language. Probably
stop would be a good one. I can imagine stop would definitely be a good one to learn.
Yep, halt. Yep, you bet. Yeah, they and the amazing part with 4 languages going on. English, brew, some Chinese, Cambodian. On the operations I went in, everybody was trying to make it work. I mean, they just needed to understand what was requested or needed to be done. It wasn't any argument or anything that I remember. Brew, do you remember any?
Nope.
Yeah, everybody just tried to work it out, make it happen. Go ahead. We cut you off, but I'm sorry.
No, not at all. This is what we're here to listen for, and we're definitely wanting to learn. This isn't on our questions that we covered, but by this time in the war, when you guys are getting with special forces and everything, and how much let's see, definitely how much the yards had been around in the Nungs. Were there any? Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think DLI was teaching any Montagnard dialects, just Vietnamese, French, and stuff like that. Was there any emphasis or training, or were any guys learning beforehand, maybe how to, if they knew they were going to be around Montagnards or working with yards, that they took a shall we say moonlighting learning process to get more knowledge on the yards?
Not that I was aware of. There was a course at Fort Bragg. The name evades me right now, and there was some Vietnamese language, and some of there were already refugees and married couples of Vietnamese women. They role played villagers and things like that, but no intensive training. It was part of our area study.
Okay.
But I don't know. Brew has a gift of language, and so did one of my platoon sergeant, Paul Machad. And I do need to announce he passed 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
type thing. Blessing, he had the Alzheimer's pretty darn bad when he passed. But we made that was another part of make it work, come together as a team. The guys that could speak or learn it did, and we kind of put it together. But Brew, maybe I think at that time wasn't they're trying to translate a Bible for the Brew people in those years. I can't remember.
George Washington Bacon, I know, was doing a lot to translate the Montagnard language, and I think he was actually at one point in time before he went over to the CIA was working on translating the Bible for him.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you were referring to that, but I do know that for a fact.
Yeah, they, to my knowledge, they had no alphabet or no written language of their own. Some knew some Vietnamese. My interpreter could read, write, and speak English, Vietnamese, and Chinese.
Wow, man, it's amazing some of the knowledge and language some of the indigenous guys picked up from either French. I mean, some of them learned German from the Foreign Legion that were with the French, and that's always wild to me. That Vietnamese speaking fluent German.
Yeah, it's a melting.
In fact, my interpreter on the recon team, North Carolina, he was one of the few Brew that ever go to a high school.
Oh, wow.
He went to high school in Way, and he spoke very fluent English. But the Brew had a legend, and the legend was the reason that they didn't have a written language was that they had offended God, and God had made them each the parchment. So they didn't have a written language, but they said they could remember really well all the languages.
Wow.
It was true. They picked up languages pretty fast.
Yeah.
It seems like it. I mean, God, I mean, these guys were I mean, I forgot one of them up north at CCN in the later years was 17, I think, and he spoke French, Vietnamese, and several yard dialects. And I mean, it's 17, and they'd been running recon with SOG for 3 or something. So, this question kind of will lead into our our next question that we had listed out, but Jason had a question about some prior vets. As John was saying about learning from those who had fought before, how much influence did either of you have with Korea War vets or WW2 vets in your, we'll just say your entire military career, even though the cadre and training or command were Vietnam vets?
Brew, you want to go first?
Yeah, not a lot actually. Talking about personal interaction, but some of our commanders were actually Korean War and World War II guys.
Yep.
You know,
And sergeant majors.
Yeah, because by that time they would be pretty much senior in rank. That normally, if they're officers, they'd be colonels or above, and if they were sergeants, they're going to be EAD-9 for sure.
Sure. Well, there was one exception. You remember Tony Coelho? He got in as a frogman end of World War II, served with a 187 in Korea, had a fascinating story there, and then got out and came back in because casualties were so high with the NCOs that they offered chances for them to come in. Ideally, they'd be in training, but he said BS on that and ended up in our compound, went on an operation out there and earned a Distinguished Service Cross at 48 years of age. Interesting, when he was decorated by General Abrams, I was told by one of the sergeant majors that was there, when they decorated him, they were bringing the 5th Group colors home. The general said to Tony, we're about the same age, aren't we, Sergeant Coelho? Coelho says, yeah, some of us got to go to the field and teach the kids how to do it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was his personality. He was a wild guy, but for me, I cut you off, Brew. Brew, I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish, then I'll add in.
No, that's fine. I mean, if you look at SOG, especially the upper level guys,
yeah,
almost all of them were either World War II or Korean vets, and has something to do with how they chose Chief SOG. It was basically a recommendation from the previous commander. Then the new commander came in, and so you had this group of guys that knew each other and knew that the person's combat abilities, you might say, and that led to him being selected to be the next Chief SOG.
Yeah, and I know it's popular to complain about officers and commanders and stuff, but I never had those complaints. For Chief SOG we had, I mean, he knew what we were going through. He backed us up. When I called for a prairie fire extraction, he made it happen. They were behind us. They advised us. They'd sit in the club and talk to me and the other young officers. They listened to us. Yeah, and one of our sergeant majors, not at SOG, but before I got there, we didn't have command sergeant major then. We just had sergeant major. He was a ranger in World War II and Korea. And when he talked, you better be listening. I got to tell you, can't say enough good about him or Tony. Like Tony Coelho told me one night at I think he said Chozon Reservoir, he broke 3 M1s swinging them like a ball bat, break them at the stock. God. And he didn't break them over a log either.
No.
You know, an M1's a pretty strong piece of wood.
Yeah.
And he was whatever is the lightest weight in boxing. He was that size. He was just barely tall enough to join the Army.
Featherweight.
So how hard can you swing it? That's why he didn't like an M16. He preferred the
14.
Yeah, well, M1 actually.
Wow. Okay.
And we had him available. I don't know if he ever took an operation. I doubt it.
Oh, wow.
type thing. Anyway, I got you off track. I did want to speak up for Tony and Sergeant Major Mays.
No, that's as Jason just said. These are the exact reasons why I love getting questions and people remembering stuff. That's amazing.
Two of our sergeant majors were 2-star CIBs from World War II in Korea in Ranger units. And I'm sure that's where the heavy influence come from small unit Ranger tactics that we did ourselves and taught the people who we worked with, the indigenous people.
Can you get the spelling for us of Tony Quano?
Coelho, I can give you a close. He's a Distinguished Service Cross winner, so that'll be in the
on the internet easily.
Yeah, I think it's Coholo, Coelho, I think is right. They have a special section in the Special Forces Museum at Fort Bragg about the Distinguished Service Cross people, recipients.
With him being a DSC. Wait, do you know what year? It'll be easy with that.
That was in 1969 or 70, if you're talking about the year of the B70, actually, the year of the citation.
Yes. Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We can easily find that then.
He was another one that taught hands-on how-to ready right now. What he had taught that team was a breakout operation with grenades and running, and that's what saved that team, was my understanding. I was not on the ground when that happened.
Wow. Did one of the next questions on the list was when you gentlemen were joining, did you understand? Let me get the words right, because of course Vietnamese War. But did you understand exactly what y'all were doing in Vietnam? The CETO organization, the treaty, and all of that. Did you understand why troops were being sent to Vietnam to fight on the South Vietnamese behalf against the North Vietnamese and the Chinese and the Russians and whoever else were over there fighting against y'all?
Get them, Brew.
Well, I think a lot of us, because the one thing that's maybe a little bit different in SF versus the regular Army. Mm-hmm. You got some pretty bright guys.
Oh, yeah.
And they're curious. And so a lot of them are like me. They're reading everything they can on Vietnam before they go there. They're reading area studies. They're reading reports and stuff like that. So we had a pretty good idea what the geopolitical thing was before we got there. But here's another thing. When you talk about Vietnam, you have to talk about which Vietnam. Mm-hmm. Mm. Because there's so many different kinds of war going on in that country. You know, the war that we fought was not the war fought by the Army. Completely different. You know, if you look at the average grunt in Vietnam and what he did and what we did, really different kind of operations. Yeah. And if you look at operations in the North versus the South, I mean, just within CNC. The difference in the enemy, the terrain, you know, it made a huge difference in how you fought and who you were fighting at the time. And we always like to say that, you know, we got them first and we wore them down, so when they got down south, they weren't nearly as bad.
Yeah, true. And then we had stay behind guys too.
Yeah,
it did. I'd like to piggyback on the differences, and we're not saying we did better than them. No, we're same but different. Okay. We didn't have Americans shoulder to shoulder, back to back with us. One or two, me and Brew, Sergeant Eli, fine soldier. That was it. We had infiltrators in our own ranks, type deal, in our own compounds that we had to deal with. That was one of the reasons I never gave the extraction LZ to anybody but like Brew or Jim Skinner or Robert Eli or Palmer Shaw, those kind of guys, because they would know when they'd take. If I got hit, they always say they shoot the officers first, and I have a funny story about that a little later, maybe if we have time. If they could get the team out, or we called it team, but it was actually a platoon type thing. We didn't have mortar fans, which means mortars can drop in direct fire to help you. We didn't have artillery to help us. Air support came in 35 to 40 minutes if it came, and it came through 3 weather zones from either Thailand or from Vietnam. And there was an issue that if Vietnamese pilots were flying, maybe it wasn't coming type of deal. In a firefight with semi-automatic and fully automatic weapons, you can shoot a lot of bullets in 35 minutes. I know sometimes I've mentioned we carried upwards sometimes 25, 30 magazines, 18-round magazines, 20-round magazines loaded 18 rounds. I'd have to confess and say I gave away more magazines than I fired. But as a leader, you're walking around redistributing ammo. You better make sure the guy on the line or in the foxhole's got ammo, because I can't shoot inside the perimeter. Type of deal. So hand them a loaded magazine. I hope it made some of them feel better to certainly help protect us on those things. Well, I think Brew, do you remember? What I remember is we only had like 2 or 3 30-round magazines, and the point men had them. If that's
well, I'll tell you, I remember we got one 30-round magazine issued to us for that operation.
Yeah.
And I remember I jumped out. I was on the lead King Bee.
Okay.
I jumped straight out the door and went ass over tea kettle down the hill there, because that was such a steep hill, and lost the first 30-round magazine. Lost a round.
Yeah, Brew.
And I remember I was rolling, and I came up, and I'm looking around, and I looked down at my weapon, and there's no magazine in it.
Yep. Well, and the pouches too. We never had a proper pouch, so we put the magazines in canteen covers, or some of the guys are fortunate enough to have a BAR belt that was pretty good. The M14 magazines were too deep for the 20-round magazines, so you'd wad up some cardboard from a C ration or something and put it in there, and that worked till they got wet. And you fall down, crawl around, roll around, like Brew was talking, all that comes open, and the magazines are everywhere in the mud. And so you have to deal with those things. Again, not complaining, just reporting. We made it work. You pick them up, you wipe them up, and you wipe them off, and you keep using them on the deal. So there was same but different, if I can drill that point home. It was old-fashioned infantry type fighting. For instance, with us, and with a platoon, you don't have stealth on your side. The recon brothers did, so I'm told. I never went on a recon mission. But, time we get done walking through the jungle, there's a path. 20 guys carrying heavy rucksacks. I mean, you can't sneak through the foliage. You can't do that. We always had. Let me start over. There was limited LZs for us to be inserted with. And there were LZ watchers there, usually 3 in a team. When we hit the ground, one of them went for reinforcements. 2 of them followed us, so we always had trackers. When we sat down, one would leave to bring the cavalry up, so to speak, type of deal, and one kept eyes on us. We had flankers, type of deal. They were the only safety that I understood, and Brew, correct me here if I'm wrong, our safety was independence of each other. And when we got in a perimeter, that was our world type of thing. The threat was always there. It wasn't if we weren't really in contact. We were under watched eyes, but they'd shoot at you once in a while to let you know they were still there. They were hurting, so to speak. Go ahead, Brew.
I just like to mention from that first mission with Captain, it kind of colored a lot of things for me from then on in my experience in running recon. One thing, I carried 50 magazines. And
Yeah.
what some of that was because on the third day with the Hatchet Force on that mission, we had to get a resupply of ammo. If you remember that.
Yep.
'Cause,
Yep. And we got loaded magazines. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, here's the thing. That particular group that we went out with that time, I think we had a lot of new people in it, not only on the American side, but also on the brew side.
Yep.
So fire discipline wasn't that wonderful. I remember we coming down this hill, we ran into that bunker complex.
Yep.
And, there was a cell team in there. Mm-hmm. So the cell team, they take off running. But it took about 5 minutes to get everybody to stop shooting.
Yeah.
Well, I remember looking at this one brew standing there, and his feet were literally covered in magazines. He hadn't moved an inch, and he just kept feeding magazines, you know?
Yeah. Yep. That's right. But now's the time I have to tell my humorous story, my second lieutenant story on myself.
That's fine. Go ahead. Absolutely.
As a 19-year-old second lieutenant, blonde hair and blue eyes, and one of the senior NCO said, "Oh, Buster Brown wearing a green beret," and you're a source of amusement for some of the guys, and they like to tell lieutenant stories and jokes and things. And one of the hazing things they would do is they would say, "Well, Lieutenant, lieutenants only last 3 to 5 minutes in the first firefight or something, and life expectancy, and more lieutenants are killed than anybody else, any other rank," and that kind of talk. And they're teasing, but my eyebrow is still up and I'm still listening, right? And so I got to think, well, maybe they're right, because we were trained to shoot their officers, so they're shooting our officers, type of thing. And okay, fine, to break up the chain of command and leadership and stuff. But anyway, I got to thinking about it. So I had always wanted to be a soldier as a boy, and I had some things I wanted to do. I wanted to shoot a machine gun. I wanted to throw a grenade, and I wanted to lead a charge. And I had all these boyhood fantasies that I wanted to do. So on that contact that Brew just mentioned, I went through my list. First 3 minutes, I grabbed up the M60 from one of the yards when they were changing belts, and fired it and put it down and threw a grenade, and I was doing all this stuff. Sergeant Eli walks up behind me and says, "What are you doing?" But I wanted to get all those things done before I got killed, so lack of immaturity and good judgment, I know now. But anyway, I wanted to share that story before anybody else did.
One thing about Sergeant Eli, he had a great sense of humor.
Yeah, he did. And talk about learning lessons. If you stand up and dance around and do all kinds of crazy stuff, guess who they're shooting at? Everybody else is laying down. I should have bought lottery tickets that day. But anyway, we did get it back together. And the compound, we found out later, was a staging area for the Battle of Quezon. And it was very well done. We learned a lot on how they operate.
The engineering, things were amazing. I mean, they're working with native stuff.
Yep.
But this is the thing that always impressed me about the North Vietnamese: their ability to make stuff.
Yep.
And their
improvise. Yeah.
Because like in this bunker, they would have individual bunkers where they'd have like bamboo beds, but the bamboo beds would be around this hole, and they could just dive right off their bed.
Yeah,
wow.
Just roll right off. Their infirmary or little hospital was the same way. They just roll right off, and they're in about 2 foot deep slit trench. Yeah, so that they could, survive. I mean, they weren't greenhorns. Yeah, he's right. Yeah. The engineering was amazing.
Just their maintenance on the Ho Chi Minh Trail was amazing.
Yeah. Oh. They took care of business on things. When it goes to that question we have planned, what kind of enemy did we face? We faced a determined, well-trained, motivated enemy. And
Very adaptable.
yes, and if you showed a weakness or you did something 2 or 3 times the same way, same distance, anything, they would get you. And I feel sorry for young soldiers, and I don't know young soldiers on active duty. But if you think your enemy is a sissy or can't fight or won't fight, you're wrong. You need to change your mind, because they will get you and your buddies. That's what they're there for. Think about it. In our war, they walked all the way down from North Vietnam with our Air Force pounding the living crap out of them and us ambushing them, the snakes, the bugs, the other animals, the disease. And they came there with a willingness to fight us, and they did fight us. And I don't want to be misunderstood. I am not pro-communist. I am not pro-communist soldiers, but I respect them for what they can do.
Oh yeah.
Tell you a funny little story about that. So after the war, in about 1990 or something, I'm in Hanoi, and I was sitting there talking to this guy that ran this restaurant, and he'd actually been to South Vietnamese Air Force, and then he ended up coming north, and he's running this restaurant in Hanoi. So we're sitting there talking, and this guy walks across. He was the electrician. And he looked at me and he stopped and he came back and he said, "You Vietnam before?" I said, "Laos." He said, "Highway 9." I said, "Yeah, Highway 9." He said, "If I see you before, I kill you." And I said, "Aren't you glad we're both alive? Have a beer."
Yeah, good for you.
Wow.
And we did. And we did.
That gives me the shivers, Brew. You handled that a lot better than I would have. I don't know what I'd have done.
Holy.
I tell you, there's a huge difference I found between the soldier and the politician.
Oh yeah,
they're just like us. They got drafted. I had one guy I met. He was a Thai whose family had escaped out of North Vietnam during the French Wars, and were refugees in Thailand. And at that time, they couldn't go to school there. They couldn't go above high school. So he wanted to study art. So his parents sent him back to Hanoi to study art. Well, this is in the very beginning. And he ended up getting drafted and becoming a combat illustrator and a radio guy.
Oh. Wow.
And when I met him, he was a Navy commander, and he was assistant in charge of the Army War Museum in Hanoi.
Oh.
And so here's a guy who was from Thailand. He grew up in Thailand, got drafted in North Vietnamese Army, served throughout the whole war, and he still couldn't go back home to visit his parents because of there's pretty strong feeling yet in Thailand about that. He did later on be able to go back and visit with his family, but he was just a regular guy, like we're regular guys. We did our job; they did their job. Now, I don't like communists at all, but the political people are completely different.
Yeah,
and the soldiers are different.
Mm-hmm.
Most soldiers, I say most, I got no problem with. There's a few out there that I'm sure that I'd shoot them if I could, and I met one of them, and I thought I was going to shoot him actually, but it turned out he was the interrogator at Hanoi Hilton.
Yeah, I can imagine it was tough to keep back your true feelings once you found that fact out.
Yeah, I did go over there and look him straight in the eye, and it just made him really uncomfortable.
Yeah. I am. Wow.
Yeah, that'd have been tough. That'd have been real tough.
I do want to share that we did. I help me out here, Brew. One of my missions, I think it was that first one, at night I was recording, had a new high-tech, there's Blinn Black right there. Yes, sir, fine soldier, one of the best. Cassette tape player, which was high-tech for us. And it was wired to our PRC 77 and KY 38. And what my job was in night time sitting in the foxhole was flip through the frequencies, and I was able to record some Russian language. The reason I knew it was Russian language, I had taken one semester of basic Russian in high school in Colorado Springs at Palmer High School at the time. And they did me a favor and gave me a C and let me transfer out. I just had a heck of a time, but I understood what the language was, and I recorded it. I carried that whole mission in battery bags, that cassette tape, to keep it dry, and turned it in, and didn't hear anything for a couple months. And one thing, being a 19, 20-year-old lieutenant, you can get away with pestering people and asking questions and stuff. And I stayed on the operations sergeant, and finally, what was on our tape? What was on our tape? Because, I was ready to be the legend of special forces in my own mind. I heard these words and I recorded them like a recon man would, and brought them back, turned them in. Well, we wanted some feedback. And finally, he sits me down, he looks in the eye, he says, "John," and whenever a master sergeant uses your first name in that tone, it's kind of like your mother has a special tone of voice on some issues. And he said, "What you recorded was a Spanish speaker speaking Russian less than one click away from you.
Oh.
And if you ever say anything about this, I will call you a liar and deny it." And that was the end of our conversation. And so that was one little piece of intel for all the rumors. And then I guess some of the recon guys actually had sightings of Caucasians and stuff over the fence type of things. I did learn later on in life, there were Marine units also in RAO without authorization. And I think some of those Caucasian things came from them seeing us with our indigenous soldiers. So I don't know, but that it makes sense to me anyway. So that's one of my Russian stories.
Wow, that is insane. That's we're always interested in those kinds of stories, because that we, as you said, those pop around, and those legends are around of y'all bumping into East Germans, Russians, Cubans, what have you.
Yeah, that's what they said. Cuban. Thank you.
Cuban.
Yeah, type thing. Brew, did you get into any of that, or?
No, never did.
Yeah, type thing. Type. It was. I nearly leaped out of the foxhole. I was so excited. And in fact, I even approached an American, like, let's grab a squad and go down there, because we were looking at what they called a way station. Mm-hmm. And it was like a little motel where troops passing down the trail could stay. They had extra bunks. They had good engineering. Again, I had all that stuff. And we were waiting for daylight to move in. And I fantasize sometimes that if I went down there and captured that guy, I'd be, a hero or something. I don't know. But luckily they said, "No, we're sitting in the hole. You can go by yourself." And I wasn't ready to go down there in the dark by myself and catch anybody. So type thing. So, yeah. But we weren't perfect. We learned by experience, and the old saying, Professor Experience gives the tests first and the answers second. And we certainly tried hard and we worked at it. That's for sure. And we took it seriously.
Was there a before we get into some of the other questions here? I was looking at my notes and I can't remember if we were supposed to talk about this at some point, but was there a time when you were with Mr. Lynn and he had a pistol blow up in his hand that we were talking about?
Oh, that was a Willie Pete gun, the napalm gun.
Oh, the gyrojet pistol.
Yeah.
No, it was a different
Oh,
thing.
oh, wow. Okay. Whoa.
Type thing. Yeah. We'll say it again. What the heck? Yeah.
Yeah. So that actually was my first trip to the range. I took the squad down there that day. I think we had a couple squads went down the range. So Lynn's down there, and this pistol is actually an aluminum tube, probably about a foot long,
Mhm.
and a little plastic handle that folded down, and then it actually shot Willie Pete, is what it did out the front. So we're all standing around there watching Lynn, and Lynn it was in a plastic bag. I remember he takes it out, pulls the handle down, goes down range. It goes click, and he goes, "Oh no, not a boom!" This thing blows up, and it blew vertically. So I'm running, everybody's running. I mean, I'm thinking, oh man, I just got here and I'm going to be disfigured for life from Willie Pete. When it was all said and done, I think it singed Lynn's eyebrows and got a little bit of burn on his hands, and nobody else was hurt.
Oh, thank God.
So every time I went to the range that Lynn was there, somebody got wounded. And I used to tell people at the club, you can go to the field with Lynn, you'll come back, you'll be okay. Don't go to the range with him. You'll probably get a Purple Heart. In fact, because of him, later on, we went down with the recon team to do practice. We had to take the ambulance with us.
Oh,
So you had to schedule an ambulance to go with you before you could go to the range. That was Lynn Black's doing.
Yeah. He. Well, what a guy! If can I piggyback, Brew? Did you get said what you wanted to say?
Sure.
Okay. I do want to give a special shout out to Lynn Black, Pat Eddington, and right there, Jan Waringa.
Dutch.
They I don't know their status right now or anything, but I want them to know, or their families to know, that they were fine men. I was a 19 to 20-year-old second lieutenant. We already talked about that. And every now and then they would talk with me and help give me ideas and training, guidance and motivation. And in my mind, I got the ultimate compliment. And maybe I'm vain here right now. Please forgive me, but they did say they didn't really like officers, but if they had to go to the field with one, they'd want to go with me. And that did so much for my confidence to it. And I guess I'm running out of words to say the right words, but they took the time when they didn't have to. They had their own problems, their own teams. They were running a lot of missions. They were busy men. And thank you. So I guess I should have just said thank you, guys, and saved the story. A little bit wordy here, but
that's the other thing. At that time at CCN, we had some really outstanding guys. Like he said, Lynn, Tilt, Dutch Waringa,
yep,
Eddington,
Dave Maurer.
Yep.
I mean, Jerry Plank, all these guys. I when I got there, I just went and spent some time with these guys because I'm trying to get my head around what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the early guys that I spent a lot of time with was Pat Eddington. That was kind of funny because a lot of guys are kind of intimidated by Pat, you know, because number one, Pat had been there at that time, I think 3 or 4 years already, and he's just an incredible guy. And so when I have free time, I go talk to Pat. And Pat, man, he'd tell me, the way you learn is through the stories of what they've been through. And he just told me all the things. In fact, he's telling me these stories. And one time he says, I don't tell them that when they're debriefing me anymore. I just tell them what they want to hear because otherwise they don't believe me.
Yeah.
But Pat, okay, when your intelligence is rated, they have an intelligence rating. It's like A through C or D, and 1 through 5. So the closer you are to 1, and the closer you are to A, is how reliable you are as a source. An A1 source is like premier, and typically you don't reach A1 as an individual. Well, Pat was a B2. I knew from talking to some Intel guys. That meant that and a lot of teams didn't have a higher rating than that as a team. But Pat would often run single missions. He would be the only American on the team.
Yeah.
And his word was so good that there was no question that the intel that he was giving them was accurate. And that was because he didn't tell them everything.
Yeah, thank goodness. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were blessed. I'd like to piggyback on that also. We didn't have a media guy on the team or a combat reporter or whatever they called them. They had different names. And they weren't second guessing us and getting in the way and all this stuff that the younger people have to deal with, or so I'm told anyway. I guess it's quite a deal that they're involved with nowadays. You came back and you gave your after action report and went back and got ready for the next mission. We did have correspondence. That's what they call it, foreign correspondence. I think there was 2, maybe 3 of them killed down at CCS, if I remember. And one of the thoughts I had at the time was, okay, now maybe you will get the idea of what we're up against out here as media. It is dangerous. There is risk. There is harm. There is death. There is killing. There is blood. And it's not a theoretical academic journalism 101 class or something else about it. Brew, do you remember anything about that?
No, I don't.
I'm stalling out now. I'm pretty sure it was down there in CCS's area. I don't know that it was a SOG mission, to tell you the truth.
I'll be right back.
Okay. The media was not helpful to us. You asked earlier about the political situations and what we understood about it. What I understood was the domino theory that they gave us. And today it still makes sense to fight on somebody else's soil instead of your own. The American people do not understand war and what can happen, what does happen, and what's the aftermath of that happens. It's a little study of Cambodia might help. If you Google Cambodia, what happened there, and find out that Pol Pot executed more of his people than Stalin and Hitler put together.
Oh, yeah.
Type deal. Everything is different. It's a whole different world over there. And we don't want that in our country. No. And I don't know how to make the point strong enough. Maybe we need a documentary of the awfulness of it, if that would help. I don't know about that. So I believed in the domino theory. I really did, and I understand it's controversial now, and armchair quarterbacking, and who made the most money, and all that other stuff that comes in on it. But there are two bad guys in the world, and that was our mission as a special forces unit. Our motto was liberate the oppressed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we were trained to go into their country and train them how to fight and protect their own country, and that's what we tried to do, type of thing. I don't understand the anti-war sentiment. Why are you talking to us? Why don't you go talk to the attackers? They're the ones causing the problem. And of course, that's just talk. They're not going to go do it. And if they did, they wouldn't be allowed to, on and on. But to me, it is, we have to stand up for what's right. And what right is right in our country should come from the Declaration, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and other legislation, and the Bible. And we need to do what good men do and good people do based on those things, not on individual preferences, type of thing. I have difficulty with posers, just out and out lying about even being there or what they did, or stealing other people's valor, I think is what it's called.
Mm-hmm. Stolen valor.
Stolen valor. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what motivates them to do that. I don't know that everyone has to get into the fighting and the killing, because we do need support. Bottom line,
Absolutely.
Can't do it without them. Yeah, and do what you can do to help us. And some people used to say, "Well, what's the rub? Why do I have to go?" Well, part of the reason you have to go is that it's the obligation of a citizen in our country to help us when we are in need, type of thing. The other part is, what kind of man do you want to be 10, 20, 30 years after it's over? Are you still making excuses and making jokes about why you didn't go help? My life's not a joke, and I hope your life isn't. Type of deal. Was it hard? Was it inconvenient? Yeah, it was. Type of thing. The other issue I'd like to bring out is, we all did something that was equal. No, we didn't. We all helped that were there. But let me share a few things I know from some SOG brothers. You ever had a canteen shot off of you? Came that close? Or a near miss scrape? Didn't lose much blood? Did you ever have a stock of an M16 hit with an AK round, spin you around, knock you down in the mud? Did you ever slit the back of your trousers so you could squat to relieve yourself because the diarrhea was so bad?
No.
Did you ever have so many mosquitoes you couldn't even see your own skin? Not to mention the leeches.
No.
Yeah, well, the support people, God bless them. I don't know that you went through all that. Did you ever get out a chopper that had 200 holes in it? And I'm not asking for your sympathy, and I'm not asking for your approval or congratulations. I'm just telling you straight up what it is and what it is. Yeah, we all helped, but it wasn't equal, type of deal. Have you ever had your hands shake so bad you can't hardly pour water out of a canteen or load a magazine because you're so afraid? An old sergeant taught me one time. He said, "Lieutenant, you're not going to learn fear in Vietnam. You're going to learn stark raving terror." And he's right. He's right. Again, I'm not complaining. I'm just trying to paint a picture. And that's why we're different when we come back. We still don't like loud noises. In church, just recently, someone wanted to give me a hug and come up behind me and yelled real loud and grabbed me.
Not a good move.
Not a good move. The Special Forces veteran with me, it bothered him so much he left in the middle of the service. And we didn't mean to. We stayed, my wife and I, but we don't mean to be rude. But would you please not yell in our ear and grab us from behind?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, he didn't know, and he meant no harm. He's trying to be
friendly.
Friendly, yeah, thank you, and type of thing. So we do look at things through different eyes, and we hear things differently. My cabin in the Rocky Mountains here is a rectangle and has windows on all four sides. No matter what window you look in, the view is different. And that's the point I'm trying to make on the issue. We have to accept each other's differences, type thing.
Beautifully put.
Yeah. And Will Rogers was a humorist in our nation in the 1900s. He said, when speaking to a fool, make sure you're not similarly engaged. So, nice, good philosophy. He had quite a few things like that. Oklahoma boy, I understand. So then I would say, and I'm speaking a lot to the younger soldiers and even some of the family members type thing. Maybe I could bridge into that a little bit. Young men and young women go in with a purpose, do a good job, so you don't have to look back and make excuses on why you copped out or why you didn't do your job or why you weren't there when somebody really needed you, type of thing. When you get out, you've earned your VA entitlements, file for them and use them, please. Type of deal. It took me over 20 years to understand that, but a Persian Gulf vet straightened me out. Help you get an education, help you get training, whatever it is. The VA can help you. They will help you. They're not the best, maybe, but the advantage they have on PTSD is they see more PTSD people than everybody put together. Mm-hmm. And the years have gone by where we now have combat veterans that have advanced degrees in mental health and things. And you're talking to a person who knows, and it makes all the difference in the world. At least give them a chance. Try different therapies. If it works, stick with it till it don't work. When it quits working, change to something else. Don't be afraid to try different therapies. It's called taking care of yourself. If you were shot, would you stick your fingers in the hole and try to save yourself from bleeding? Yes, you would, because that's what you have to do. Same thing with mental health. You got to go get some help. For the friends and brothers around you, help them. You'd carry them if they were wounded. Help them now. I'm being harsh with my tone, but I mean it. And I want you to understand that, the listeners and the watchers here, type of thing. Do what you can to help them. Animals didn't work for me for like not a guide dog. What do they call them? A helper dog for
service.
Thank you.
Dog.
Service dog. Thank you. Neither did horses, but they have helped a lot of other veterans. So if you got the chance, give them a try. Music works for some folks. What worked best for me was painting pictures. And that was for myself. There's a group out there called Mighty Oaks. It's out of the scripture of the Old Testament. Mm-hmm. They're the best I've found since 1970. Give them a try, and it's no expenses. They got a web page. Look it up, figure it out, go do it, type thing. Part of it is suicide rate is raising. It's 20, depending on where you look, 22 a day. If you add in younger vets, it's 40 a day. And I don't know how to manipulate numbers, but those guys do in the computer world. Divorce rate is 80% for the younger vets. It's time to do something for them and help them. That's what the old guys do. We can't do anything else. He rolled and used up, pooch gut and satchel ass, and about all we can do is tell stories like now and share some wisdom if somebody will listen, and take advantage of that. And family members, they have help groups for families now. And I bring all this out because when we came home, we didn't have it. In fact, a lot of times it was hostile. But that's done now. And the generations of American people fixed it. That's how good these people are in our country. They said maybe we did get manipulated by the media and whoever else. Okay. But the people fixed it. The programs are out there. Look here, our young friend Bud lets us get up and talk. And we appreciate it. It's washing it out. It's good for us type of thing. I would encourage you, combat veterans and support troops, don't share with people who don't understand. The wife and kids don't need to know the blood and guts. Neither does the neighbors. Okay. That's for when you're with the brothers and sisters type thing, to get it out. That's where the Bible helps. And if you read a little bit of Old Testament, there were some warriors in the Bible.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
What Abraham do when Lot got in trouble? Was it Lot, his brother-in-law? Yeah, he got some guys and went and got him, right? And there's certainly Joshua.
Yes.
Help me out here, bud. David. So they were all warriors type thing. If you read into it, did they do everything right? No, sure didn't. But they did a lot of things right, and they took care of each other. And that was what needs to be done, type thing. Am I making sense, bud? Or am I
helping? Absolutely. Tying it all in together. King David's one of my favorite biblical warrior legendary figures to look at. He was a wise man, a great warrior, and took care of his men. I was actually looking at something that what he would do after a campaign and bringing all the soldiers back and giving them time off for their way before their time for mental health, to see their families or whatever they were going to do. And it's very correct. People could get a lot out of it. And I'm glad you actually had it written down for Mighty Oaks, that we pretty much just covered the last of the questions on that. And I was glad you mentioned the Mighty Oaks, and that reminds me, I will add that into the description to where they can just click on that in the show and not even have to Google it for themselves. So I'm glad you
great. Thank you. They do the work. They have follow-up. I'm school teacher by trade, and their academic preparation is excellent. They have a Bible that goes along with it, the Soldier's Bible, where the commentary is aimed at veterans and active duty members and their families. Use it, type of a deal. If it doesn't help you, well, then I am sorry for you, but at least give it an honest try. You got to be straight.
Something that works.
Find something that works and do that, and go on with the good life that you can have and share, especially with your family. I do need to give a shout out to my platoon sergeant that I lost 2 weeks ago, Sergeant First Class Paul Machad. He's the highest decorated veteran in the state of New Mexico, Silver Star with oak leaf clusters, 4 Purple Hearts. In other words, he was a fighter, cognac drinker, spoke, read, write, and speak 8 languages. He could troop the line in our company with 4 different platoons of different languages, change languages in front of each platoon. He taught us how to fight. I mean, really fight. He had, I think, I'll stand corrected here, I think 4 years. He worked all the projects and the 2 Corps Mike Force with Cambodians. And tell you how much he was respected by them. When we got a platoon of Cambodians at CCN, from CCS when they were getting off the trucks and saw him. They started cheering.
Wow.
Yeah. He fighting. He went to the field with me after his third Silver Star. He had stepped on a booby trap, an M14 mine planted by the enemy, took off the front part of his foot. So he had a false half of a foot, if you call it that. And when I first met him, the colonel told me, he said, got a new platoon sergeant for you, but he hates officers. And I thought, great, I just don't need another load. And he never called me sir. All the years we knew him, called me lieutenant. I had to watch his tone voice. And when I walked in the platoon bay, the yards were all loading up because we were going to go on operation about 3 days, go into isolation and stuff. And I looked for him, but I couldn't see him because I didn't know what he looked like. And they were all sitting in small circles, chattering and carrying on and preparing the mission. One of the other guys was there, and I said, where's the new guy? He pointed across the circle. And he was sitting there whittling on the foam coming out of an M72 law case. I said, what's he doing? And so he's making himself a foot for his boot so he can walk. And I lost it. I just needed. And so I looked at him. I said, if you slow us down, I'll leave you. It was a wrong thing to say, man, that caliber. And he stood up and he looked at me, and I thought, I'm dead right here in front of everybody. But he didn't, obviously, because I'm sitting here. And he said, you won't have to worry about me. And you got to understand, he had 3 or 4 tours under his belt and 3 of Silver Star and 3 Purple Hearts. He was a Pathfinder. He would go in with the airborne Pathfinders to land, I think it was 2 Corps Mike Force. It was airborne qualified type thing. So he had plenty of experience and everything. And turned out we did really good. He taught us how to fight, be a fighting unit. He gave us pride. He gave us confidence. He made us work for it type thing. And then he was wounded. He took 2 AK rounds in the right thigh. And he's the one that taught me, when you're bleeding, stick your fingers in the holes, do something for yourself. He said that to me. Stick your fingers in the holes, Lieutenant. And so good man. And I hope his family sees this someday and is very, very proud of him, his conduct and his service and commitment, that kind of thing. Enough said. You had a couple other things you wanted us to cover, but
that was pretty much it for the questions on your end, Mr. Brew. Would you like to close up for us today and speak a little bit on your end?
Okay. And save me a couple minutes for the Purple Heart thing.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Brew.
I just want to echo a little bit about what the captain said. When we came home, there was nothing. And it was even worse for most. Yeah. I mean, if you're coming back from SOG, number one, you couldn't talk about anything that you'd ever done.
Right.
Most of us never told anybody we were even in SOG.
Yep.
We didn't want to answer any questions about what we did. So we didn't never talk about it. Somebody said, well, what did you do? Oh, I was in SF. That's as far as the conversation got. I think the only time I actually put forward the idea to somebody where I was a guy that actually flew in Batcat. I don't know if you remember, we had Batcat frequencies.
Yep.
Batcat was an electronic sensor plane flown by the Navy. And this guy was on that plane. And so I just told him, I said, well, where you were orbiting, I was underneath you.
Yeah.
But
that was high tech.
That was high tech. And the thing is, we never even talked about it, other than acknowledge that we knew where each other was. Neither one of us would talk about what we did, even to each other.
Yeah.
So at that time, I remember this is when the Vietnam Veterans Against the War started coming out, and there's so many BS stories coming out. We throw these guys out of helicopters and all that stuff. And I remember thinking, well, I really need some help, so I'll go down to the vet center and see what they got. So I went down to the vet center. It was closed that day. And I said, that's good. I'll never have to come back. I never did. I think the one thing that helped me the most was the very first special ops convention reunion I went to. For the first time in 20 years, I could sit down and talk to somebody about what I did.
Yep.
And see the guys that I hadn't seen in 20, 30 years, So for me, the journey has been a little different. The other thing that really turned me off at the time was how the VA was treating people with PTSD. Basically, they would give them handfuls of pills, and it made things worse because they turned them into zombies, and they weren't helping them; they were just making them less of a problem for the VA. So these guys, all I ever saw was people getting worse, not better. And I remember when I was a kid down in Ohio, I was probably about 10, 11 years old at that time. I had two good friends. Their father was a Korean War vet, and he had been shot in the head and had a plate put in his skull. And he just lost it one night. I mean, completely lost it. He was back in Korea in the foxhole fighting. And this is how hallucinating he was. He had guns in the house. He didn't use a single one of them. He built a gun out of a piece of pipe so he could use shotgun shells. He was hitting with a hammer to shoot the shells.
Yeah, man.
And he was back in Korea. That was my first encounter with somebody that was having real problems. And the problem was not just PTSD in his case. It was that plate in his head was also causing problems neurologically.
Yeah.
Fortunately, in those days, we still had real police officers. And even though he kind of stole them, he fired at them and everything, they were able to talk him down. And they were able to get him out and get him into care. But today's day, they just go in and shoot him, So they've come a long ways in their abilities to help.
Yes.
But the thing that's important is you have to want help.
Yep. And do it.
And if you don't, nothing changes.
That's right.
I mean, I'm one of those guys, I've been through the divorces. I've been through the problems, only through the grace of God, I'm still okay. But, it took me a long time. And unfortunately, that's kind of our generation's story. But things are much better now. There's a lot of private groups out there that'll help you, like the Mighty Oaks and others.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely.
if you're coming back from Iraq, Afghanistan, and I know you guys are coming back from Afghanistan, particularly feeling it after they gave up everything that you fought for. Just remember it. We've been through it. We're just laying the truth on you. Go get some help, bro.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid or don't be intimidated. Just reach out. There's people there to help you.
Yeah. Amen.
Absolutely.
That's well spoken. It's okay to cry in the right crowds or by yourself. Wash it out. We did. My dad did. His ship went down at Guadalcanal in the Battle of Salvo Island. They lost the vast majority, 200 or 300 sailors and Marines. Bothered him to the day he died. Shark, we went overboard with my uncle, tied their life vests together. The sharks came to get the carnage type of thing. So we all been there. Let us help you. I wanted to show picture if I could. I don't know if I can get it. Is it clear? I don't know how to. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
there we go. Okay. Now, what that is about is you see a sword. I know you can't read the scriptures that are there, but if you go to biblicalselfdefense.com, he will give you all the scriptures in the Bible where it talks to you about your right to defend yourself, your family, your church, and your country. Read them for yourself and find out about them. The knight standing there, maybe you can see it. This is one of my therapeutic pictures. You can see his armor is all beaten up because there ain't no easy life that I ever seen or heard of in my 75 years type of thing. So those scars and that dented armor shows you're going to have to be there for a while. The inscription on his shield says, "Protect the innocent." That's our job as men. The inscription up above says, "A true knight." Let me read it. "A real knight has had his mettle, mettle, truly tested and has the scars to prove it." On his armor and on his shield is 616 for the scripture, I think, from Ephesians 6:16, put on the armor of God type of thing. The other thing I wanted to share with you, if I can make it work, is this is a road sign. It's called Purple Heart Trail sign. A year ago, we started in our county, Taylor County, Colorado. We now have 42 of those signs up in almost every little community we have. We only have little mining towns and stuff like that. The purpose of the Purple Heart Trail was started by the Military Order of Purple Heart. And you can Google them, and then you Google or go from their webpage to Purple Heart Trail. It's a sign put up on like bridges and crossroads and parks near schoolhouses. And the idea of it is to show the Purple Heart decoration and explain what it is to a lot of citizens who don't know. The people don't know what it's about. The Purple Heart is the symbol of the price of our freedoms. And we need the people to know about it. We need to remind the old guys like me, get off your butt and do something to help. Whatever it is that you can do at your age, your fitness level, your medical conditions, you certainly can do something. So get out there and do it. You wouldn't quit in combat. You wouldn't quit on a road march. Don't quit now. Help these guys. Military Order of the Purple Heart Trail is what it's about. Fort Carson, Colorado, just 2 days ago accepted they'll put one at their front gate. Walmart, who's one of the big stores in our little community, they're going to put one up, which is an exception for them because they normally don't put signs up, but they have a special reason. Sam Walton's son was a SOG man. I didn't know him, but the NCOs that I know talked to me about him. They respected him as a man and as a fighting soldier type of thing. He since passed due to a ultralight airplane accident type thing. But what you do is you get together with the city fathers or county commissioners or whoever, talk to them about it. They got some money to spend. You go to the veteran groups, DAV, VFW, Special Forces Association, Special Ops, all of them. Get some money from them. You buy the signs, you go around and you put them up. And then you have an event to share with the people, and you'll be amazed at the number of people that show up. We had one family that had 6 Purple Hearts in 3 generations. It's amazing to talk to them. The American people have stood up for America. It's not what the media says. Shame on them for being sensationalists. That's all I got, bud.
Wow. Mr. Brew, do you have anything you'd like to close out with before we shut down for the day?
I think we covered things pretty good today.
Thanks to everybody that listens to us.
Absolutely. We've had a great fan interaction, and they always enjoy hearing you. I'll have to pass on the thanks because we're getting a flood of thanks in. So Guys, we may end up getting these two gentlemen back together again if y'all can get some questions y'all think that we didn't cover or y'all'd like to hear more about. We'll set that up. So, but we're going to close out for today, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Friday, and a wonderful, safe weekend. And we'll look forward to next week. So you guys be safe, and God bless.
You too, sir.